Today, we're diving into the secret history of flint. It sounds simple, right? A rock. But we're going to uncover how this single material basically powered human innovation for thousands and thousands of years. It's an incredible story of technology, of danger, and really of how we learn to build societies.
All right, let's just start with a quick question for you. Think about it. Before we had steel, before we even had iron, what was the absolute sharpest tool a human being could possibly make? What was the pinnacle, the high-tech gadget of the Stone Age?
The answer, it's probably not what you're thinking. For millennia, the most advanced, sharpest cutting tool on the planet wasn't wood, it wasn't bone, it was a rock. A very, very special kind of rock, flint.
Yeah? So we really have to just throw out that classic cartoon image of the Stone Age, you know? This isn't about some guy with a crude club. We are talking about what was, for its time, a genuine high-tech material.
I think we all have this stereotype in our heads, right? That stone tools are just blunt, clunky things. But the reality? It's absolutely mind-blowing. A flint blade made by a skilled craftsman could be sharper than many of the first metal blades that came thousands of years later. Think about that for a second.
So how is that even possible? Well, it all comes down to this really cool property called a conchoidal fracture. It's a fancy term, but what it means is when you hit a piece of flint just right, it doesn't just shatter. It breaks off in these predictable, curved, almost shell-like flakes. And the edge of that flake, it's incredibly, unbelievably sharp. This one little trick of physics is what allowed our ancestors to become master toolmakers.
And what could you make with this stuff? Oh man, pretty much everything. You gotta think of flint as the original Swiss Army knife. You need a knife to butcher an animal. Flint. A scraper to clean a hide? Flint. You need a deadly arrowhead for hunting? You betcha, flint. Even sickle blades for the very first farmers, and massive polished axes strong enough to clear entire forests. It was absolutely fundamental to survival and progress.
Okay, so flint is amazing. Everybody wants it, everybody needs it. But that creates a problem, doesn't it? The really good stuff, the premium grade flint, it wasn't just lying around on the ground anymore. And this led to a massive, revolutionary shift in how people thought about resources. They went from just gathering what they could find to actively extracting it. And this is the key question, really. If your entire civilization's toolkit depends on this one single material, how do you make sure you don't run out? How do you secure a supply chain? Well, it didn't happen overnight. At first, people just picked up what they found on the surface, in riverbeds, at the bottom of cliffs. Easy peasy. But that easy-to-get stuff, it runs out. And a lot of it is kind of weathered and not great quality. But eventually, our ancestors realized that the really good stuff, the pristine, untouched nodules, they were buried, deep underground. And that meant there was only one thing to do. They had to start digging.
And that was the real turning point. This was so much more than just digging a hole to get a rock. It was a complete change in how humanity interacted with the planet. We weren't just living on the surface anymore. For the first time, we were becoming miners, deliberately going beneath it.
So what was it actually like for these absolute pioneers? Let's try to picture it. Let's go down into those first mines and see what their world was really like.
Okay, just imagine this. You're deep, deep underground. No sunlight, obviously. The only light you have is maybe from a tiny, smoky lamp burning animal fat. The air is cold and damp, and it's quiet. I mean, this was a totally alien environment for any human being.
And the world they worked in was one of incredible contrast. I mean, on one hand, you have their amazing ingenuity. Their toolkit was literally made of things like deer antlers for picks and heavy rocks for hammers. But on the other hand, there was just constant, terrifying danger. The whole shaft could collapse. The air could go bad. Your lamp could go out, leaving you in total, absolute darkness. It's hard to even imagine.
So this wasn't just some engineering problem. It was a deeply human challenge. Every single person who went down into one of those shafts was literally putting their life on the line. They had to completely trust the people back up on the surface. It required an unbelievable amount of bravery and teamwork.
Now, this massive effort, it wasn't just about the miners down in the dark. The act of mining itself sent these huge ripples through society, changing the very structure of how people lived and worked together.
All of a sudden, you couldn't just have everyone doing a little bit of everything. You needed specialists. You needed prospectors, people who could read the land and know exactly where to dig. You needed the actual miners, the diggers. Then you needed master craftsmen, they were called knappers, who could take a raw rock and turn it into a perfect arrowhead. And finally, you needed traders, people to move all these finished goods around.
This is it. This is the birth of a specialized workforce.
And how do we know there were traders? This is the cool part. Archaeologists can actually trace a flint tool back to the specific mine it came from based on its chemical signature, and they find these tools hundreds and hundreds of kilometers away from home. That tells us these weren't just a bunch of isolated little groups. They were part of huge, sprawling trade networks, all connected by this one critical resource.
So when you put all the pieces together, the mining, the specialized jobs, the long-distance trade, what you're looking at is one of the first major industries in human history. It was a whole economy, built on a rock.
So what's the real takeaway here? What's the lasting legacy of all this? Well, it turns out that the skills people learned in those dark tunnels, not just the technical skills, but the social ones too, they laid the foundation for, well, for pretty much everything that came next.
And this is the bottom line. These weren't just people digging for rocks. They were engineers. They were pioneers. They were literally building the technological foundations of human society. You can draw a straight line from this moment to the future. I mean, the know-how required to dig a safe shaft, to organize a team, to process a raw material, that knowledge is completely transferable. Flint mining was basically the practice round for the Copper Age, which was the practice round for the Iron Age. It all starts right here.
So you see, the real innovation wasn't the antler pickaxe. It was the project plan. The true breakthrough was learning how to organize, how to cooperate as a complex society to go after a valuable resource that was hidden deep underground.
And that kind of leaves us with one final thought, doesn't it? If flint mining was the invisible engine driving the prehistoric world, what are the quiet, behind-the-scenes innovations happening right now? The things we might not even see that are building the foundations for the world of tomorrow.